Welcome. Today we're diving into the incredibly high-pressure, mentally demanding world of professional interpreters. It's one of those jobs that looks a certain way from the outside, but we're about to pull back the curtain and show you what it really takes.
So let's just start with the big question right up front. What does it actually take to do this job at the highest level? Because let me tell you, it's time to forget pretty much everything you've seen in the movies.
The single biggest misconception, the one we're going to tear down right now, is that interpreting is just about knowing two languages. In reality, that's just the ticket to get in the door. It's the absolute starting line.
First up, let's get right to the heart of what interpreting truly is, because I promise you it's about so much more than just words.
Now, this definition might seem really simple, but it's incredibly precise. And the most important word on this slide isn't languages or speaking, it's mediate. Everything, and I mean everything, hinges on that one little word.
So let's break that down, right? To mediate means you're bridging gaps in culture and understanding, all that unspoken context, not just swapping one word for another. People speaking reminds us that this is a live human thing. And different languages that's the fundamental barrier they're there to solve. So you see, an interpreter isn't a walking dictionary, they're a human bridge for meaning.
Okay, so now that we know what interpreting is, let's take a look at how it's actually done. Because the pros have a whole toolkit of different methods they use depending on the situation.
And the two heavyweights in that toolkit are consecutive and simultaneous interpreting. They might sound kind of similar, but in practice, they are worlds apart. We're talking about completely different kinds of mental gymnastics for each one.
First up, we've got consecutive. It's basically a turn-by-turn process, just like it sounds. One person speaks, they pause, and then the interpreter renders what was said. You'll see this a lot in smaller meetings or in courtrooms for witness testimony, situations where absolute precision is absolutely critical.
And then you have simultaneous, which is the real high-wire act of interpreting. The interpreter is listening to the speaker and speaking their words into another language in real time, often from a soundproof booth. The concentration required is just insane. It's so demanding that they almost always have to work in teams.
But the toolkit doesn't stop with those two. Professionals also have other specialized techniques. There's something called chuchotage, which is just whispered interpreting for a very small group. There's sight translation, where they read a document in one language and speak it out loud in another, on the fly. And there's also interpreting with a portable tour guide system.
And here's a great little piece of professional slang for you. That portable system is often called a bidule, which is basically French for gizmo or thingamajig. Yeah, the nickname alone tells you it's seen as a pretty poor substitute for a proper professional booth.
All right, now let's step into the most elite level of the entire profession, the pro booth of the conference interpreter. This is where the skill and the pressure are just on a completely different level.
And here's the key thing to understand. Conference interpreting isn't really defined by the location. It's defined by an elite skill set, a mastery of both that high-speed simultaneous mode and what's called long consecutive, where an interpreter might have to render 5 or even 10 minutes of a super complex speech flawlessly from memory.
And that world is just a constant battle against the clock. I mean, imagine the cognitive load. One day, you're interpreting for neurosurgeons. The next day, it's international bankers. The expectations from the people listening are immense, but so is the professional respect these interpreters command.
So how do these pros actually classify their own language skills? It's not as simple as just saying, I'm fluent. They have a very formal system. You could almost call it a professional alphabet. This is one of the cornerstones of the profession, really. You see, being a polyglot is one thing, but being a professional interpreter means you have to understand the precise capabilities you have in each language. And this is all done using the ABC classification.
Let's break this down real quick. Your A language is your mother tongue. You always interpret into this language to ensure the highest possible nuance and accuracy. A B language is another active language that you have absolutely perfected, and you can also interpret into it. And then, C languages are passive, which means you understand them completely, but you only ever interpret from them into your A or B. This whole system ensures quality control at the very highest level.
So when we put all of these different pieces together, the mediation, the tools, the professional standards, what is the interpreter's true role? Well, they are an invisible bridge. Ultimately, their work really rests on these 4 pillars. Yes, of course, language proficiency is one, but that's combined with a deep knowledge of the subject, those highly specialized interpreting skills we've talked about,
and an unwavering professionalism that guides every single decision they make.
This is their ultimate function. It doesn't matter if they're in a courtroom, a boardroom, or at the UN. They are building invisible bridges between people, between cultures, and between ideas, allowing communication to happen in places where it otherwise simply couldn't.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. In an age where AI and machine translation are advancing so quickly, what is the future of this uniquely human skill? This blend of mediation, cultural nuance, and real-time cognitive power? That's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.